This boy, ever since he was a child, was always beaten and humiliated by his own father, who was actually one of the biggest gang leaders in the region. After losing his temper, he left his father in a vegetative state and ended up in a juvenile detention center, where he will face the worst and most insane situations of his life. The story begins with a boy lying on the ground, his face covered in blood. From the shadow, we see a very strong man hitting him. Violence was a daily thing. My whole life, I grew up being beaten for no reason by someone who was supposed to be my father. To me, violence was as normal as breathing, he narrates. The scene then shifts to the boy, a bit older. He had a target on his face, desperately begging for it to stop. A man with a rubber band and a coin was ready to strike. "Can't you just hit me normally? There's no need to do this to me," he pleads. The man responds, "What, you don't want this? I thought you needed money." This blonde man's name was Kim Sung-ho. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for sexual assault. "You've done everything to make money so far. Shoveling snow for 301, warming our shoes for 101, and for 201, you were a dog for a day. Now, being a human target, you'll earn 501, he says. Frightened, the protagonist responds, "I'll do it." They were in a juvenile detention center, a kind of correctional facility. There, all the juvenile criminals of South Korea, under 19 years old, were gathered. Violence and crimes happen daily. "You better squeeze your eyes shut so they don't pop out," Kim Sung-ho advises. "It'll be funny if this ends up lodged in your forehead." Suddenly, the rubber band snaps and the coin hits the bathroom door, falling into the toilet. "Damn it, do you guys have another rubber band?" one of the inmates yells. "Rubber bands are really rare around here," another replies. "You got lucky this time." Cha Ju-young, says Kim Sung-ho. Our protagonist, Cha Ju-young, runs to the toilet. "There's no way he's going to grab the coin from the toilet," one of the inmates comments. Kim Sung-ho says, "If you really want that coin, you'll have to get it with your mouth." Cha Ju-young looks at the coin in the toilet while the others laugh at him. "Someone had massive diarrhea there yesterday," one of the inmates comments. Without thinking twice, Cha Ju-young puts his face in the toilet. "Gross!" exclaims a prisoner. "Boss, isn't it time for the hack now?" asks an inmate. "Already. Hey kid, you better get out of there slowly, since you smell like crap," says Kim Sung-ho. The inmates laugh at Cha Ju-young. "He's an idiot," they say. "He's become like this in just a month. Even without money, I think he's given up on being human. He's here for attempted murder," comments an inmate. "Cha Ju-young, attempted murder, sentenced to 3 years in prison," says another. "Murder is nothing compared to making money," says the boss. "Why is he so obsessed with money? Does he have some debt?" they ask. A guard appears. "Number 70 at 199. Cha Ju-young, you have a visitor." Cha Ju-young is surprised. "Visitor?" he asks. "The reason I'm saving money is because," he begins, but is interrupted. The scene shifts to a girl with short hair and a red scarf, resembling Annie from Attack on Titan. "Why is your face so thin? Are these idiots not feeding you, or are you getting beaten up here?" she asks. She is Dawn, Cha Ju-young's childhood friend. "You really are an idiot. I told you that first impressions matter. Didn't I say not to stab someone in the eye right away?" she says. "Why do you visit me so often?" "There's no need to waste money," he responds. Irritated, she says, "You think I'm a beggar? Tell me, what's with these coins? Where did you get the money to send them to me, even without a father? I don't accept suspicious money." "Why did you bring this back?" he asks. "Because of our promise to live together in Seoul when we graduate from high school. I've already saved the money, so take care of yourself," she replies. A guard appears. "Visiting hours are over." Dawn stands up. "I hope you understand me. Think about being released as soon as possible and never give up on yourself. That's a promise, right?" The protagonist can only wave goodbye to her, but the further she walks away, the more depressed he becomes, thinking only about the promises he made. The scene shifts to the protagonist and the girl sitting in what looks like a hospital. He says, "My dad, because of this foam, he ended up, well, never mind." The girl, all bruised and dirty, responds, "What? What are you saying? Are you kidding me?" She slaps the protagonist and says, "Aren't you at all worried about me? Your dad is in a coma after being hit by the flower pot you swung. If he never wakes up, the police won't let you off so easily." The protagonist, also injured, replies, "It's fine. Considering the domestic abuse I've endured, the punishment won't be too severe." The scene shifts to the courtroom and the judge declares, "Cha Ju-young, this court sentences you to 3 years in prison." This leaves the protagonist in shock. He is outraged, being imprisoned for retaliating just once after a lifetime of his father's violence. Why did no one do anything, he thinks. The scene then shifts to the protagonist already in prison, and the girl says, "Make sure not to miss your meals, and let me know if anyone bothers you in there." Got it. That's a promise, right? The protagonist just turns his face and goes to his cell. Even if someone in this prison causes trouble, the sentence would be extensive. But if a prisoner behaves, their sentence can be reduced, he thinks. The protagonist is sitting on the floor, contemplating that he will spend 3 years of his life there, looking at a photo of his friend. He says, "Let's wait out these 3 3 years. However, that blonde guy shows up and says, "Wow, pretty girl, huh? Is she your girlfriend?" The protagonist responds, "No, she's just a friend of mine." The blonde guy says, "Oh, unrequited love, huh? I get it. Hand over that photo now." The protagonist responds, "What? My photo? No, I'm not giving you my photo." The blonde guy says, "Oh, look at this. The kid's trying to act tough, huh?" The man then prepares to attack the protagonist, saying he needs to be corrected immediately. However, just as he's about to beat the protagonist, a guard appears and says, "Dormitory 36, you have a new inmate." The blonde guy says, "Oh, fresh meat, huh?" The guard introduces inmate 397. The new inmate doesn't look like someone you want to mess with. The guard then says, "Please, I'm begging you not to cause any trouble. We'll be watching everything you do." The inmates comment, "That guy, I think I know him. Isn't he the one who killed 7 delinquents at his school? His name is Ma Joan." Ma Joan, murder of 7 people, sentenced to 20 years in prison, someone says. That's the longest sentence in the juvenile court. Everyone in the place is in shock. Did he really kill 7 people? They wonder. Kim Sung-ho says, "You guys are such wimps, huh? Idiots. Who cares if he killed 7 or 1,000 people? Is there anyone here who isn't as bad as him? Just look at that ridiculous face, and you can tell he's a wild beast. Really, you have a very fitting appearance for a killer. But let's not get cocky here. Make sure to behave. Got it." Kim extends his hand to Ma Joan. Ma Joan just looks at the hand and turns his back on him. Kim Sung-ho gets angry and says, "I thought this would go smoothly. But it seems this bastard is really an idiot." He prepares to punch Ma Joan in the back. However, at high speed, Ma Joan dodges the blow, leaving everyone very surprised. Kim Sung-ho wonders, "How did that bastard dodge my blow with his back turned?" Ma Joan prepares to punch Kim Sung-ho in the face. The protagonist thinks he's different. A person who killed 7 people is really different. However, just as Ma Joan's hand is about to reach Kim Sung-ho's face, Kim Sung-ho retaliates much faster, landing a full punch on Ma Joan's face, making him spit blood. This guy is really tough, huh? Kim Sung-ho starts kicking him repeatedly, saying, "You damn bastard. Know your place and recognize who's the boss here." The scene changes, and Kim Sung-ho is hitting Ma Joan on the head, saying, "Go get water for all of us." Despite everything, Ma Joan continues to refuse to be anyone's subordinate. The inmates keep beating him. The protagonist thinks, how did he manage to learn to do everything wrong here? Even a pig being sent to the butcher wouldn't be this mute. It seems I'm the one who's going to have a very tough life here because of a useless fish. Night falls, and everyone is asleep. Ma Joan's face is swollen and bruised from the beatings. The protagonist then calls out to him and says, "Are you an idiot? Is it that hard to appease the boss a little? Even if he's a piece of trash, he's the boss and the king of the prison, or at least this dormitory. So it's natural for us to shut up and do what he says. It's better not to get so worked up when you can't even fight back. Just do what he says, starting tomorrow." Ma Joan responds, "Kid, have you really always lived so submissively?" After saying this, he just turns over and goes to sleep. The protagonist thinks, what is he talking about? He gave me advice. Have I really been living my whole life so submissively? But I have to keep doing this, at least until I get out of here. The scene shifts to the protagonist's friend, Da-yeon, who comments, "It's really cold, and Ju-young seems to have lost a lot of weight. Should I pack some food for him?" Considering his situation, he can't talk about it, but he's probably going through a really tough time in there. He should at least eat well. A lunchbox for him in this situation is nothing, but he'll be really touched by my gesture, right? Da-yeon, very happy, starts crossing the street. However, suddenly, our relentless truck Kun appears. Just as the truck is about to hit her, the scene shifts to Ju-young, sleeping peacefully in his bed. But when the scene returns to Da-yeon, she is completely covered in blood, and her lunchbox is scattered on the street. The scene shifts back to the prison, where a guy says, "My condolences to you." The protagonist asks what he means, and the guard responds, "Well, kid, there was a car accident at the intersection in front of the prison. What I'm saying is that your friend has passed away." With these words, the protagonist's mind is shattered. Ju-young is filled with so much rage that it shows on his face. Kim Sung-ho arrives, calling him an idiot, and says, "You didn't clean the bathroom today. Are you losing it because of what happened to you? Don't tell me you're looking at your crush's photo first thing in the morning." One of the inmates comments, "There was an accident this morning in front of the prison, and it seems the girl in that photo got into it." Kim Sung-ho says, "Oh, no way, seriously. So the girl who got in the accident was your little girlfriend, the one who always visited you here, huh? Why were you lying then, you poor idiot? What are you going to do now that your girlfriend is dead?" Kim Sung-ho snatches the photo from the protagonist's hand and says, "She was pretty cute, wasn't she? What a waste, right, kid? Hey, any of you want this photo? Let's start the bidding at 500 won. That price is dirt cheap." The protagonist starts remembering Ma Joan's words, asking if he had really always lived so submissively. Ju-young thinks, this is a limited edition of me now. He gets gets up and simply punches Kim Sung-ho in the face, knocking him to the ground with great force, which shocks all the prisoners around. Kim Sung-ho's face is completely smashed into the ground, even surprising Ma Jong. In a flashback, Ju Young tells Ma Jong, "My father was the right-hand man of a successful gang leader. From a young age, I was beaten daily by that bastard. But what could I do? Even though I was beaten every day, I had to live with him because he was my father. But there was one situation, one time, when I couldn't take it anymore. It was when my father tried to threaten my friend." Back to the present. Kim Sung-ho's face is completely bloodied. Everyone lunges at the protagonist. "At least, from being beaten to death by my father's scum, I learned this properly," Ju Young thinks. He begins to defeat them one by one, while Kim Sung-ho is impressed by his fighting skills. The scene shifts, and everyone is on the ground, unconscious and bloody. Kim Sung-ho, on his knee, begs, "Please, don't kill me. I'll give you all my money. You want money? I can give you as much as you need. Just say the word." Ju Young responds, "Money. Money is really good, but now I don't need that crap anymore." He starts beating Kim Sung-ho again, saying, "The reason I did all this, humiliated myself for you all, and held back until now doesn't exist anymore." The scene shifts, and we see Ju Young beaten up on the ground. He remembers his father's words, "Follow in my footsteps and become a real gangster." His father said this while beating him every day. "This cycle of daily aggression started when I was very young, and I couldn't even look my father in the eye. But I always thought I had to become the strongest of all. To this day, I have this tattoo engraved on my body. It was the only direction my anger could go, toward the eyes of the dragon." The scene shows Ju Young running toward his father, extremely angry. His father comments, "I like your eyes." The scene cuts back to the present, where some guards enter the cell and are horrified by what they see. What did the protagonist do here? Ju Young, with a completely changed expression, says, "Yes, I did this." The scene shifts to Ju Young sitting in a cell, looking smaller than usual, just staring at a photograph completely stained with blood. He remembers his friend, who used to say, "Has your father gone mad? What kind of father hits their child on the first day of high school? This is too much, even for the biggest lunatic. He should have been there to congratulate you." Ju Young responds, "Don't worry, this isn't the first time this has happened to me." She, irritated, asks, "Are you okay? How can this not be the first time? This can't continue. I'll have to talk seriously with your father about this. He promised me." Ju Young grabs her arm and says, "Never go to my house. If you do, you'll be breaking your own promise." Da-yeon would have to stop calling him my friend. The girl then becomes a bit sentimental, saying that he really doesn't understand these things because he's never had a real home. Ju Young responds, "No, relax. I didn't mean it like that." Da-yeon then says, "After high school graduation, I'm thinking of moving to Seoul. I'm tired of living in this damn orphanage, and this small neighborhood suffocates me. I'm thinking of going to Seoul, graduating from a decent university, getting a job at a big company, driving a foreign car, carrying luxury bags, and living in an apartment with a view of the Han River." Ju Young asks, "Have you always been this materialistic?" He starts to think that if she really goes there, he will be alone in this life forever. But Da-yeon responds, "Actually, I would like you to come with me too. That would be amazing for me." She then takes Ju Young's hand and says, "Will you really come with me?" They pinky swear and say, "This is a promise." She adds, "If you don't keep your promise, you'll have to call me Nona for the rest of your life." Ju Young responds that he doesn't agree with that. Suddenly, a strange man appears, saying they make a lovely couple and asks if he can take a picture of them. When Ju Young is about to say they aren't a couple, Da-yeon responds that yes, he can take the picture. The man takes the photo that Ju Young always looks at. Back in the present, Ju Young punches the cell wall, leaving a handprint on it. He starts blaming himself, saying that all this is his fault. If he hadn't done what he did to his father and ended up in prison, maybe Da-yeon would still be alive since she wouldn't have needed to visit him in this filthy place. Ju Young starts punching the wall repeatedly, crying and apologizing while looking at the photo. A guard appears and says, "Kid, I'm sorry for your unfortunate situation, but I can't overlook what you did in the cell. You didn't even touch your food yesterday, so try to calm down and at least eat a little. Life has to go on. You can't stay in this state forever." Ju Young falls to his knees, crying and apologizing for being a complete failure. The scene shifts to the cafeteria, where everything seems normal. The inmates are eating and talking. "Did you hear the rumors?" One of them asks. "What rumors?" The other responds, "They say the guy's name is Cha Ju Young. He beat everyone in his room and was sent to a punishment cell." Another inmate asks, "Why would that kid do that?" The first inmate responds, "Apparently, the room leader mocked the death of his girlfriend, who recently died in a car accident." The inmates find this amazing, as the situation is refreshing for them. Ma Joan is just listening to all these rumors. Suddenly, a man next to Ma Joan stands up. One of the inmates says, "Does that mean we have a new leader now?" The man then grabs the inmate's head and smashes it into his food tray. He says, "What are you all talking about with without me. You seem to be having a lot of fun. Don't mind me. Let me join the conversation too. This guy's name was Park Jong-chun, imprisoned for special assault. He says, so you're saying this guy became the leader by rebelling, and that's refreshing. Then tell me, why are you all trying to leave me out? All the inmates at the table are shocked by his words. Park Jong-chun asks the man whose face he just smashed into the food, and you, are you okay? The man responds, crying, sorry, Jong-chun, I really shouldn't have said that. Park Jong-chun says, so the bastard's name is Cha Ju-young, huh? The scene shifts to a week later. One of the guards says to Ju-young, the leader you beat up is still in the hospital. What kind of punch was that? You left him in a coma. The guard continues, we're going to let you out in a week, considering your current situation. So, it's best not to cause any more trouble for us. Ju-young returns to his cell, but his expression has completely changed, showing a smug look. Ma-jone thinks he took down the room leader. Now, the guys here won't welcome him warmly today, but what can I do to help this kid? Suddenly, one of the inmates stands up, catching Ju-young's attention, and asks if he's okay since he went through a tough time. All the inmates surround Ju-young, asking if he's okay and if it was hard to endure the punishment in the small room. Some offer to massage his shoulders and fetch water for him. Ju-young's life had truly turned around. See, violence solves everything. Folks, just kidding. Don't take that seriously. Ma-jone was writing in his notebook. Recently, I've realized something at school. Parents, appearance, and grades are very important factors. But here, at the Juvenile Detention Center, strength is everything. The scene shifts to the detention yard, and Ju-young calls out to Ma-jone. Ju-young asks, why did you do that? Ma-jone doesn't understand what he means. Ju-young continues, that day, when I tried to kill that room leader bastard, you stopped me. It's ironic to be stopped by someone who came here for killing 7 people. So, why did you stop me in that situation? Especially since that guy was tormenting you too. I'd like to hear from you why you stopped me. We see a flashback of Ma-jone with his hands, feet, and body covered in blood, standing next to several dead people on the ground, wondering, what am I doing on earth? When Ma-jone is about to answer Ju-young, a man arrives and says, so you're Cha Ju-young? You look a lot smaller than I thought. How did someone as short and weak as you manage to beat Kim? That guy must have been a piece of trash to lose to you. But answer me this, kid, why did you do it? Why did you rebel against him? Are you so desperate to take the room leader's place? Or is there another reason? Ju-young responds, you're wasting your time. I really don't care about that. If I lose this position, so be it. The man laughs and says, kid, you have a shitty way of talking to others, don't you? You know what I hate most about people? Arrogant folks like you, who don't know their place. Let me teach you something. The man punches Ju-young in the stomach, grabs his head, and prepares to punch his face, saying, what happens to the dog that dares bite its owner? Before he can land the punch, a guard appears by the bars, and the man stops, saying it was just a joke between friends. The guard says, kid, you know the rules. As the room leader, you can fight as much as you want under the guise of maintaining order. That's one of the rules of this juvenile detention center. The man starts beating Ju-young, who doesn't fight back, leaving Ma-jone impressed. Park Jong-chun throws Ju-young against the cell bars and says, you're so weak you can't even hit me back. Beating you up isn't fun at all. As he rolls up his sleeves, a dragon tattoo is visible on his arm. Ju-young remembers the beatings from his father and the dragon tattoo on his father's chest. Park Jong-chun says, by the way you talk, it seems like you're not afraid of anything. Don't tell me you did all this because of that shitty truck accident. At the mention of the accident, Ju-young kicks Park Jong-chun in the face, throwing him to the ground and twisting his arm behind his back. Park Jong-chun asks how Ju-young managed to do that. Ju-young, very serious, says, repeat what you just said. Park Jong-chun can only wonder, who the hell is this bastard? Ju-young starts kicking Park Jong-chun's head repeatedly, who screams desperately for him to stop. Ju-young says, you're dead this time. He grabs Park Jong-chun's tattooed arm and, without mercy, brutally breaks it. Ju-young says, since I was young, the only direction for my anger was the eyes of that damn dragon. The scene shifts to 2 women gossiping. I heard that kid's father is a gangster. The other replies, it seems that child is bullying someone and will be a bad influence on the neighborhood. Ju-young says, stay calm. This is what I was always best at. As the protagonist approaches his house, he begins to hear several screams from a different voice inside. He runs towards the door and opens it as quickly as possible. Upon opening the door, he sees his father in an intimidating pose, with everything in the house in disarray, and a girl lying on the floor. The protagonist's father says, well, son, you arrived just in time. Is this girl your friend? The girl on the floor was Daeyeon. The boy's father then says, she entered someone else's house and made bold remarks. She said if I touched you again, she would deal with me, so I had to reprimand her a little. Ju-young tries to stay as calm as possible, controlling his rage, as his best quality was keeping calm in situations like this. His father continues, tell this little girl that if she repeats this again, I'll send her back to where where her real parents are. At that moment, Ju Young loses control of his anger and charges at him with everything he has. Ju Young didn't just hit his father, he brutally massacred him. After that day, his father ended up in a vegetative state. The scene shifts to Ju Young's father lying in a vegetative state. He has little chance of waking up again unless a miracle happens, says a doctor. Ju Young can only look at the dragon tattoo on his father's chest and sigh, saying, "All right, it seems it finally came to an end." Back in the present at the prison, all the inmates watch what Ju Young had done. "He's really crazy. He just got out of that cell and already wants to go back," they comment. Ju Young looks at the shattered body of the man while observing his tattoo. Then, the guards announce, "Exercise time is over. Prisoners, please return to your rooms." From a high window, someone observes all the prisoners and comments, "Isn't it a bit too noisy out there?" Another responds, "Maybe it's because this is the place where many energetic kids gather." A man says, "By the way, I'm glad you look healthy. I heard you just got out of the hospital, right? If you have any inconvenience, feel free to let me know, and I'll do my best for you." This man's name was Kwon Chang-seok, the director of the juvenile prison. Kwon Chang-seok asks, "Who are you here to see?" and then smiles. The scene shifts to Ju Young's cell, where all the other inmates are on their knees, nervous in his presence. Ma Joan writes in his diary that it has been an absurd month and says, "I think I'm going to stay in this room with a really crazy guy." Suddenly, a guard calls Ju Young, asking him to come to the door because he has a visitor, which surprises him since the only person who visited him was Da-yeon. In the corridor, Ju Young wonders, "Who could be visiting me? My mother passed away when I was very young, and all my relatives abandoned me. Who could it be?" They arrive at the prison director's office, and Ju Young wonders why he's there. A man in the shadows says, "It's been a long time, hasn't it, since we last saw each other?" Ju Young looks at the man and can only think of his father, with his imposing and sinister figure. The man continues, "It was really interesting to watch you do all this live, my dear son." The name of Ju Young's father is Cha Gangryung. Ju Young can't believe that his wretched father is still alive, but as they say, a bad penny always turns up. The man beside Ju Young starts mocking him. "You look really surprised by this, huh? Why aren't you happy to see your father? What matters is that he woke up miraculously not long ago, and that's really fortunate, isn't it? Thank God your father is all right." Ju Young remembers someone saying that his father could only wake up by a miracle, and the chance of that happening was very slim. He is outraged, still wondering how his father is standing right in front of him. Gangryung continues, "You still don't believe what you're seeing, do you? I'm the right hand of the organization, and no one has been able to do this to me, not even the police. But who would have thought? Right, my weak little boy managed to do this to me. When I opened my eyes, I realized I was in the hospital and felt very sad about it." Out of nowhere, Gangryung starts crying and says, "I'm very sad with you, Ju Young. As a father, I want to see you because I love my own son very much. There's nothing I can do for you at this moment, so I had no choice but to kill her." Ju Young is confused by what he says. The scene shifts to Da-yeon's accident when she was hit by the truck. In front of her appears Ju Young's father. He approaches and says, "You said it was better not to have a father like me, didn't you? But fathers should do everything for their children. Thinking about it, little girl, it seems you still don't understand this since you never had parents from the beginning." Back to the present, the protagonist's father says, "Well, I thought you were just a pathetic son who could only endure everything and stay calm and quiet. But this was the first time in my life that I saw you do something worthwhile. And that little girl was the trigger for it. So, let's say this, my son. I tried to eliminate her. I went back to that path, and I finished her off. I did all this for your own good, my son." Without a second thought, Ju Young rises in a fury, ready to smash his father's face again. However, he gets shot with some darts. The electric shock from the tasers hits him, and he collapses to the ground. His father approaches and says, "Do you really want your revenge by killing your own father? Then let me tell you something, my naive boy. I'll tell you the only way to kill me. Some of our members are here in the juvenile prison now. They've barely got their new tattoos, but some of them will likely become the pillars of my organization in the future. Prove that you're better than all these kids and take control of this entire juvenile prison. If you rise so high and earn everyone's recognition, someday you might be able to take me down." Ju Young's father continues, "Surpass me as the second in command and prepare to face the celestial dragon. This way, you will achieve what I, your father, never could in my entire life. If you really manage to accomplish all this, my life will be completed because of you." The protagonist's father then asks a man to take care of his son, and the man responds that it's no problem, he will do it. Suddenly, the officers with the taser guns can't control Ju Young anymore. He simply grabs the shock cords and prepares to charge at his father. Ju Young says, "Stop spouting this nonsense to me, you old fool. Rest assured, I will kill you, and it will be here and now." And from here on, the story gets intense. If you want part 2, comment Juvenile Prison Part 2 below.